So President William Ruto, and I'm hoping we will have that soundbite from him speaking in Beijing, China, I believe it was at Peking University. He said, and I quote, Ruto said that, Kenya and China are not merely trade partners, we are co-actors in the new, let's listen to him rather than having my words. I want to break that statement up into two parts so we can understand it.
Yes.
In the beginning, the president says that we're not merely trade partners, but we are co-actors in the New World Order, which will be fair, inclusive, and sustainable. To which the chair of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations talks about troubling ties with China, particularly when the president calls himself a co-actor, or says Kenya is a co-actor with China. What did he mean by that?
I think I explained it. I explained it when I said, I give you the example of the reviewing the new financial architecture. That's a particular issue. There are issues that need to be looked at in the context of trade. Okay, fairness in trade. And by the way, as we were talking, it's one of the issues we even had a conversation with China, that the balance of trade is heavily skewed in favor of China. All right? And we want Kenya's trade to grow. We want that imbalance corrected. These are issues we talked about in the trip with the president in China. So what President Ruto was talking about here is collective ownership. America is a big power. So is China.
Okay. Before we now go to the three of them together, because that's the second part of his statement, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenya's foreign policy has always been one of non-alignment, correct? But then some would say that statement by the president essentially picks a side when you say we are co-actors in a new world order, particularly in the era of global geopolitical and economic tensions that we're in, that might have signaled, I don't know, might have signaled a shift to the US of our move away from non-alignment to one that says we are working with China, we are on the same side, we are co-actors.
No, I think it's being misinterpreted, and I want to repeat. The two nations are very important to us, and we will continue to engage constructively with both of them. I've just come back from the United States, and I had a very constructive engagement with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. And we reaffirmed and revisited very critical parts that we can take together as nations working together.
So this is not a shift in Kenya's policy?
It is not a shift in Kenya's policy to the detriment of Kenya or to anybody. And we are not here as Kenya to try and play one country against another.
Yet perhaps they feel that way because the senator continued to say they are reassessing the relationship with Kenya and others, particularly because of the non-major non-major state, non-NATO ally? Explain that.
We are a non-major NATO ally. That is a fact. It was gazetted. It has not changed. But let me give you an example.
But they want to reassess that relationship. Is that something that
was a statement. He said maybe there's time to reassess. He didn't say we are reassessing.
Does that concern you? That they're thinking of?
And he didn't say that the government is. No, it does not concern us because he was making a speech. And he was speaking to the Senate. And we have responded in a way that is diplomatic. So I've communicated to him. But let's just put it in context. President Trump has just made a very widely publicized tour in the Middle East. If you check, which countries did he visit? And which ones did he visit? All right? Who has been perceived as the traditional ally? And how has it been looked at in this visit? So, all I'm trying to say is that global politics is dynamic. And decisions are made for certain reasons at certain times. But as far as Kenya is concerned, I'm trying to help the Kenyans who are watching and listening to us and put it in context that we look at our national interest and we work to sustain mutually beneficial partnerships with all countries.
Is that what came up in your meeting with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio?
I know you want me to tell you what we discussed, but I'll put it very clearly that we covered a number of things. One, we got affirmation from the Secretary of State that they will continue to work with us on our role in Haiti under the MSS mission. That was very critical and important to us, and indeed for the people of Haiti as well. We thought that was a very, very important statement. Two, we talked of how to grow our economies. And after meeting Marco Rubio, I also met the trade representative, Jamison, Greer. And we had a very positive conversation, bearing in mind that Kenya had done some work negotiating a free trade agreement in the first Trump leadership. Then it changed to STIP.
STIP, yes.
And then now they're in place.
Yeah.
And we have set up mechanisms. We had a very positive conversation, and we are putting a team together so that we can advance that conversation to mutually benefit both of us. Because the reality is that the prospects of AGOA do not look very good. So we have to think and figure out how to work for the Kenyan people, for our Kenyan economy. And the United States is equally an important trading partner.
What commitments did you get regarding our mission in Haiti?
What is important is that they will support you logistically, and in terms of equipment. The United States has been very pivotal. And we wanted to get assurance that that support will not wane. And that was given. Two, it is also important that within the context of the United Nations, clarity, because the term of the MSS is also going to come to closure. Lives could be endangered. So it is important also within the context of the United Nations. The United States is a member of the P5. So their voice is equally important in making sure that this international mission can yield success and hope for the people of Haiti.
All right, so logistics and equipment, because now this is funded under the UN, right?
Yes, there's a trust fund which countries contribute to, to the UN. So it's important that all those issues are tied up as we go so that you don't leave a vacuum.
What would success look like in Haiti, Waziri?
Success would be when we can see peace and we can see them beginning to put their institutions together and work towards a free and fair election that will give them a democratic leadership. That is what would be success. It would be important to have children go to school. A situation where the gangs are, wiped out, so that no more criminal activities are taking place. And by the way, the United States also designated the gangs in Haiti as terrorist organizations, which again is a very fundamental step, because then they can come heavier with sanctions and other punitive measures to help the flow of ammunition to Haiti.
Okay. We've gone around the continent and perhaps around the world, and we're back now to Kenya.
Right.
Waziri, I have just some moments for what's happening in the country
Yes.
at the moment. Currently, the former deputy president of the Republic of Kenya is claiming that the government is out to assassinate him and that there is a plot to kill him. There was over 100 police officers who were deployed, and he says he has intelligence that the plan was to assassinate him or disable him via use of certain chemicals. As Prime Cabinet Secretary of the government, what's your response to these claims, allegations?
Stranger than fiction. That's how I summarize that. Nobody would want to do that kind of thing. We are government, we have to protect people, and it is not the business of government to assassinate people. So I find it very unfortunate and sensational. And I think we should put a lot of proportion to our thoughts and our utterances, particularly for those who are in leadership positions. This is not a time to incite people. And there should never be a time to incite people. In our democratic free space, what we need to figure out is what would they do alternatively in terms of policy, in terms of programs, to justify my vote and your vote.
Is it time to be talking about votes yet, Waziri? Because there's some in the country who feel...
Absolutely. Now you've just come to exactly the point. It's 2.5 years to the election. So what should we be talking about? I think there's a serious obsession with politics in this country, in terms of immediately after one election, people are already again in an election mode.
Waziri, some would say that of President William Ruto, that he's also been out in a fashion similar to campaign mode. He has talked about an election. He has said what his intentions are, and not just him, but his lieutenants around him and those of leaders, including Majority Leader in the National Assembly, that the political rhetoric in the country is at an all-time high.
Okay, go ahead.
Allow me to finish. And that both sides are participating in either it's one side that is saying one term, another one is saying 2 term, we're going to be able to finish this, and is it Kumi Bila break? We're hearing all of these things, and that political rhetoric, Waziri, is coming from both sides, if we're being honest. So what would you say to that? It's not yet time for politicking, but yet both sides are engaging in it.
To me, I think we need to work. We need to deliver. And true, to some extent, we can all change the tone of our conversation. And we should. We can talk about politics, we can talk about development, but not in the kind of manner that we are seeing.
Does that start with your side? And there's a reason I'm asking you, because I'm seated here with you, and you're on one side of the political divide, which is also pushing a political campaign.
On this one, there are errors on both sides. Okay? The way we communicate, there are errors on both sides. So that I'll give you. Okay? We could do better. And I think we should. Because if you are to, from where I sit, there's a lot of work to be done. And we should focus there. And sometimes in these matters, you lose public office and you move on. But if you constantly exhibit bitterness, it sometimes clouds your sense of judgment.
Who do you think is bitter?
Oh, I think everybody knows that the former deputy president is very bitter.
Why?
Because he was impeached. Yeah, he is. Now it's up to him to calm his nerves and then engage constructively. But I don't think you're being constructive if you start threatening Kenyans about a bloodbath in 2027. No. I don't think you're doing justice to yourself if you continue compartmentalizing Kenyans.
Okay, let's take questions from our viewers who are watching us tonight. We want to start with this one, if we can take it up on the screen. Yes, so that we can see that. I guess I would need to turn this way. Yes. So this is from Gavayama Youth, I suppose that's what it means. Ask Waziri about the tea stranded in both Kenya and Sudan, and what are the measures in place?
We continue to trade. We hope that ultimately there'll be peace in Sudan so that the normal trading process can continue.
What's the state of the trade between the two countries after Sudan halted imports from Kenya? Can you clarify?
It's limited, but it's not necessarily because of the halting of imports. Please remember, the statistics show that the tea export was declining because of the insecurity. The tea has been getting to Sudan through Port Sudan, which was bombed only a few days ago. So even the operations that had moved from Khartoum to Port Sudan, a lot of them have wound up because even Port Sudan is not safe. So the decline here in the exports is not about Kenya's personal position. It's a consequence of the conflict in Sudan.
All right.
And we are looking for other markets as well. We are worried that also if the conflict between India and Pakistan were to escalate, it could also have implications. Because Pakistan is also one of the largest buyers of our tea. Yeah. So conflict is something that we must not pray for.
So what are the solutions? What are the markets are you looking at? If Sudan and possibly what's happening in India and Pakistan?
Our exports still continue to grow. We are looking at, for instance, Egypt is still big. We have had an issue with Iran. We are working on it. The Minister for Agriculture is seized with this matter so that we can step up our exports there. And we are talking to other countries, both in Europe, in Africa, to start taking and consuming more of our tea.
We can't let you go, Waziri, without speaking about the issue of labor, and particularly the export of Kenyan labor in the country. There's been quite a bit of controversy and some stories. There we go. Kipleting says the role of government is to ensure enabling business environment and creation of job opportunities for its citizens. Why is the government encouraging the export of our labor? Is this not modern-day slavery?
No, it's not. Labor is mobile. There's mobility of labor globally. And if there are opportunities for Kenyans in other countries, we should not discourage them. Kenya is now reaping huge remittances from Kenyans working abroad. The diaspora remittances have now hit almost 750 billion. They are rapidly getting closer to 1 trillion annually. That is a lot of money being injected into the Kenyan economy. So we should not look at it as a simplistic thing. Yes, the bulk of the jobs must be created in Kenya. We must encourage investment, create jobs here too. But where there are opportunities for Kenyans on the other side, we should also allow them to go and facilitate them to go. And all we can say is that we try and make that labor mobility process as comfortable as possible by signing bilateral labor agreements and so forth.
But yet there are questions around how we're doing that. One, it's even in the type of jobs, that these are low-cadre jobs rather than those that are more productive. So Kenyans are asking, why are we sending our fellow Kenyans to be drivers, to be servants, you know, what sort of the cadre of the jobs that we are sending out there, but also, Waziri, the treatment of our various workers, particularly in a country like Saudi Arabia. Amnesty International recently released a report calling, they called it Locked In and Left Out, where they chronicled the experiences of over 70 women in that country. And then there was a response, by the way, by the minister, the ambassador, Kenya's ambassador in Saudi Arabia. And he dismissed that report, terming it as exaggerations. And that has got Amnesty International unhappy, saying that the Kenya government is not doing enough to protect the rights of workers in Saudi Arabia.
What did they say about other countries? Because it's not only Kenyan workers who are in that country.
Waziri, you are the cabinet secretary.
Yeah, no.
Wait, hang on. You are the Kenyan cabinet secretary.
Yes.
One moment. You are the Kenyan cabinet secretary in charge of foreign affairs, swearing an oath to protect the lives, the rights of Kenyan workers, right? This report speaks about Kenyan women, particularly, over 70 of them. So this is not about other countries. The question is, what more can Kenya do to continue to protect the workers who go to Saudi Arabia month in, month out? Waziri, you cannot say this is about other countries.
So can I now respond to your question?
Go ahead.
All right. You see, sometimes it's a question of how you approach it, the context in which you came through it. I'm here to defend Kenya, all right? We have over 300,000 Kenyans working in Saudi. So by and large, many livelihoods are dependent on the 300,000 people working there. We have communicated through diplomatic channels, and I'm aware of that report, to the Saudi government in the official manner to tell them that these concerns are becoming of grave concern to the Kenyan people and to Kenyans. We need to work together to be able to mitigate and make sure that there are no lives being lost as people come to work, okay? So in that context, we are working together with the Saudi government, and I believe we will push, communicate until we find reasonable working environment so that we don't lose any more lives, including even one. That is what we want to be able to.
Because that's what the ambassador to Saudi Arabia seemed to say, that those are exaggerated. Maybe it's one, maybe it's less than 70. So, you know, what would be the response to that? Because these are Kenyans.
I've just responded. I've told you that we are working with the Saudi government, okay? I've just explained. And I've said that we are aware of that report and we are communicating, okay? So that I hope
So even if they're isolated incidents, as the embassy
I
says?
said even if it is one, it's a matter of concern.
All right.
All right?
Reviewing the kafala system, because that's what Amnesty is calling for?
Now, that is a tough matter. That is something that Amnesty International must also take directly with the Saudi government.
Is the Kenyan government willing to do that on behalf of the close to 300,000 Kenyans who are working there?
We will work to make sure that the working environment for the Kenyans is as safe as it can be. That is our desire.
So the kafala system is not on the table for discussion? I'm asking.
We will talk to our people. The Amnesty International has an opportunity to engage directly with the Saudi government.
But so does the Kenyan government, was it?
Now, we can engage with them, but we cannot tell them to just scrap their way of life. We have to find out.
Even if that way of life is injurious to Kenyan citizens?
As long as it's injuring the Kenyans, we talk to it. And I've said we have a diplomatic process that we're going through it. But I want to visit one other thing. Let us not look down upon domestic workers. There's a famous saying, kazi ni kazi. If you look at Philippines and how it has grown, you will not be saying the same thing about Kenyans.
The Philippines typically engages in what is called an au pair system with many countries in Europe. But the au pair rules, some would say, may not be perfect, but are certainly very different from things like the kafala system in Saudi Arabia.
Listen to me. The Philippines started with what you called as demeaning jobs. Because that is what you said. You called it low what?
It's the au pair system, you know.
No, you said you called it low-level jobs. That's what you said.
Yes, and those are the ones. The reason I'm asking.
So what I'm trying to tell you.
The point here was, allow me to make this point.
What I'm trying to say is that let us respect those Kenyans, no matter what they're doing.
And that is exactly why people are asking questions of the Kenyan government, because particularly with...
I wanted you don't want me to finish because...
No, Waziri, let me say
because
this.
On this one,
reason,
in this one, please respect the Kenyans who are working out there.
Kenyans want you to respect them as well, because when they're in those low-level jobs, then the higher the chances of being discriminated against, the higher the chances of being mistreated, because they may not have the rights that others would have. And that, I think, Waziri, is the biggest question. That we send people out to be domestic servants, which is not a job that is below them.
The sad thing,
but that
Yvonne,
at that level, Waziri,
the sad thing, Yvonne, is that you imagine that the Kenyan government is made of rocks. We are human beings. Some of the people working there are our relatives. We want them to be treated well.
Yet they're not, Waziri. So
we always engage in different countries. I've given you an example. We enter into bilateral labor agreements. We work so that we can continuously, using even the legal systems because we cannot wake up and change the laws in a particular country. So we negotiate agreements that give progressively better working environment and protection to Kenyans.
Waziri, just as we finish on this point, when you're sending out workers who are not getting paid as much and who have a higher chance of exploitation and discrimination, sexual abuse, as we hear them chronicling, and they give some very difficult stories to tell, is the question that Kenyans are asking today, that we're sending workers out, particularly those who may be more prone to discrimination and mistreatment in other countries, and what is being done, whether they're your relatives, Waziri, or not. You swore to protect all Kenyan lives, whether they're your relatives or not.
But please, Yvonne, that was a cheap shot. Let's look at it in context. Okay? Let's look at it in context. When I'm giving that example, look at the bigger picture that I'm referring it to. Okay? When we talk to Kenyans, when we talk to these countries, we also, before Kenyans leave, the ones who go through a process that the Kenya government is involved in, they are talked to, they are prepped, they are advised on what to expect, what to do and what not to do. We also tell them to make sure that they get in touch with the embassy, because many go and sometimes they don't want the embassy to know. They don't even give an indication that they're in that country. So we are encouraging them to make contact with our missions where they go, at least where we have a mission, so that we can intervene and help them when the need arises. That's what we do. So we don't just let them go. But one other thing that I've been putting across, and this one I speak because the ones who really migrate are young people. And I've been telling them that the moment you depart from Kenya, whether it is by sea or whether it is by air, if it is by sea, once the ship sails, if it is by air, once the wheels are up, the law that will apply is the law that becomes your host country wherever you are going. So it is also important that this, we educate our young people. And I really want to appeal to you, members of the Fourth Estate. You are powerful. You have a mega outreach. Let us help the young people who go out to make very informed decisions collectively, because if you try to force them not to go, it's unconstitutional. They have to go. We have to show them that there are some certain fellows who specialize in human trafficking. They will lure you. Kenya has just evacuated so many Kenyans from a certain country, because they fell into the trap. They went on their own volition. The government of Kenya did not send them there. But once they are there, it's the responsibility of the government of Kenya now to take care of their Kenyans. So we are going through a lot of issues. It's just that they're not there to be spoken to every day. But it is our job, and we shall continue doing it.